Alright guys, BLM here back with a new video, and in this video we're back with another Big Brother casting video, a redo of a video I've done 5 years ago, this time doing Big Brother Heroes vs. Villains, which somehow was actually my last Big Brother casting video before this year, which again, I can't believe it had actually been that long since I did one, but again, we'll redo Heroes vs. Villains here. So again, obviously, taking the theme from Survivor, we will make a cast where half the cast is someone I would declare as a hero, and the other half is someone I would declare as a villain, which I will say turned out to be pretty difficult for Big Brother, where I think there's a lot of people that kind of fall in the middle. I think there's obviously some that I could definitively say are like heroes or villains, but there's also a lot of people that like kind of teeter the middle, and through that I think it became tough to really formulate this list, along with the fact that obviously just in general Big Brother casting videos are difficult to do because, like, again, trying to keep this semi-realistic, I don't think that there are many big names that are really that semi-realistic to where, and there's a lot of people that again don't want to do a 90-day season again, where again, as I take consideration, where straight up there are some people that I put on this list that I do question if they would actually say yes to a 90-day season though, but I do think there are people that are at least interested in doing reality TV again, so again, I thought that was good enough, I guess.
Also, I will mention I am making this video towards the beginning of BB27, which at the time of this coming out should still be airing, to where, because of that obviously I will be excluding BB27 from this video. But with that, again, we'll run through this like I typically do, going through my season, talking about the people I considered who ended up making the cut. And straight up, not many old schoolers made the cut. There's one in particular, and another one from relatively early on season, but really the majority of this cast is obviously very recent, to where, because again, there'll be a lot of considerations from earlier seasons, but no one that actually fully made the cut. Let's start off. I mean, I really did not consider anyone from BB1. I don't think they would bother at this point. Also, I don't think I would bother. So with that, moving on to BB2, where for the hero side of things, I did very much consider Monica. Monica is someone that, again, we know was in the casting pool beforehand. It's someone that I think production's still aware of, to where she could still be in the running, though I did not go with her. Hardy is someone to consider, though, and he's another one of these that like kind of teeters the edge of hero and villain. I do feel like he definitely did some things that were villainous, though try to play in this honor-bound way and won a lot of competitions, where again, don't really know, but again, either way, I don't think he would brought back anyway. Bunky is someone I considered, though again, another one, I guess he's a hero, but not really, so I don't really know. For the villain side of things, I very much considered Will, who obviously would perfectly fit this role, though obviously he doesn't want to come back. So again, did not go with him. Also, I consider Nicole, who obviously would have been a great villain here as well, though again, I don't think she would play again. And also, I will mention Boogie, who would have been a prospective villain, though at the same time, obviously he's never coming back. For BB3, and I did put one person from BB3. Again, I wonder who. Again, people I considered for the heroes, I did consider Lisa. I think Lisa's someone, again, at least they tried to bring back in BB7. I don't know if she's really on the radars anymore, though I think she's at least someone to mention. I also consider Jason, who's someone I would like to see back. I think it'll be cool. Again, perfectly fits into the hero moniker, though I don't think he would say yes. Also, I considered Marcellus, who is someone that I guess would be a hero, though to be fair, I could see a world where he's a villain in the sense of him being like the Courtney Yates sort of figure, but even then, I don't think he would want to come back anyway. Now, for the villain side of things, I did consider Amy. Now, okay, this is a weird one. I don't know if she's a hero or a villain. She was like pretty confrontational. She did get into a lot of fights, and people didn't really like her, to where I guess that's more villainous, but realistically, she doesn't really fit into either one, so I didn't pick her. Also, I did consider Roddy, to where, again, also that's another weird one where it's like, is he a hero? Is he a villain? But even then, again, he's not coming back either way. Obviously, the person I did put on here, obviously, again, the definitive villain from this season, you got Danielle Reyes. Again, I think that's pretty easy. The question is, would she say yes? And to be fair, I don't know if she would. I think she would probably say no to a 90-day season. That would be willing to be brought back for something shorter, but still, again, the field's kind of difficult to begin with, and again, I think she's just such a clear villain that, again, is at least willing to consider coming back, to where we know she was in talks to come back for 22, and her main gripe there was the fact that COVID was happening, to where again, maybe there's a world where she says yes to an upcoming season. So again, I thought that was good enough to put her here. And with that, we don't have another person making the cast for a while at this point, but we're still going to be talking through some seasons. We got BB4 there. I mean, not many considerations on the hero side of things. I mean, Erica is someone to mention, though. Is she a hero or villain? Also, it's like, do we need Erica back? G is someone that, again, is he a hero? But again, still did not bring him back. From the villain side of things, obviously you got June, who I did very much consider, though considering and there's only 4 female villain slots on the cast, I felt like it was tough to fit her on, though she was definitely in contention. Also, I very much considered Allison, where obviously Allison would have been a great potential returnee in this spot, though another one, again, just kind of tough to fit her onto the cast. Next for BB5, and again, no one from BB5 made it on, though people I consider for the heroes side of things. Cowboy is someone to mention, obviously someone that continuously
try to bring back and is still in the Big Brother sphere, though again, did not make the cut. I also consider Nokomis, who, again, I think would probably be more hero than villain, though I just don't think she's really on their radars anymore. On the villain side of things, I did consider Diane, and again, I did question, is Diane a hero or a villain? I don't think she really fits into either. Yeah, I do think her, like, snarky confessionals would have leaned her on the villain side, though again, I didn't go with her, and I also considered Jace, who I think is pretty clearly a villain on the show, yet someone that, again, I just don't think makes the cast anymore. Next from BB6, and no one from BB6 made the cut, though obviously considered some people. For the hero side of things, obviously got Janelle. Janelle would have been in contention. I don't think she wants to come back, though, and also, again, do we need to see Janelle again? So, again, did not put her on. And I also consider Kaser, who also same thing. I don't know if he would come back at this point, and I don't know if I need it anymore either. Again, when we only have 4 hero male slots, it's like kind of tough to really fit him onto the cast. So, again, did not put him on. From the villain side of things, I did consider Yvette, where Yvette was actually like relatively close to being on the cast here, and she did make my short list before the final cut, to where, again, I considered Yvette. Yvette was in the running for 22, where maybe they would bring her back here. Yeah, again, I think when we, again, only have 4 female villain slots, it's kind of tough to fit her on. And I also considered James, who, again, I think fits the villain moniker, though also, again, just kind of tough to fit him on. Next for BB8, again, no one from BB8 made the cut, and really for the hero side of things, not really anyone in true contention. I consider Jessica, just because she had been in the running before, and I guess she's more hero than villain, but again, not really that close to being on. For the villain side of things, I did consider, again, Danielle, who obviously has been back a million times now. I think at this point you would qualify her more as a villain than a hero, especially after her 22 appearance, though, again, did not put her on. I also did not put on Eric, where Eric's one of these, again, teeters the line of hero versus villain. I don't really know if he fits either. I would say the fact that he ended up playing this game where he backstabbed people, my new Force 2 by America's Player, I think is enough to put him as a villain, but again, I did not put him on. And also I did consider Jen, who, again, I think maybe under modern landscape would be looked at as more of a hero, but I think at the time was definitely looked at as this villainous figure, this more antagonistic figure for the cast, where again, I consider her as a villain, though I did not put her on the cast. Next for BB9, and no one for BB9 made the cut, obviously. Now, the only people I really even considered was Sheila as a potential hero, but again, just was never going to make the cut. And Allie was someone I considered as a potential villain, though again, also never was going to make the cut.
Now for BB10, where there's a lot of considerations, and one person ended up making the cut.
Dan is someone I considered. I don't know if hero or villain. I think considering, obviously, his more cutthroat gameplay and his Dan's funeral moment, I think you would probably lean towards villain. To be fair, he was actually a villain in the Revengers movie thing that they did, where again, he probably would lean villain. Really, I feel like he's someone that could probably fit either, but either way, he did not make it on. As for more definitive villains, I feel like Memphis is someone that now you would quantify as a villain after BB22, though again, he did not make the cuts. But as for more definitive hero, I did consider Keisha. Now, Keisha is someone that, again, got into confrontations, got into fights, where I think that would be maybe looked at as more villainous, but I think she was obviously a fan favorite of the season. And I think she came out of the season looking pretty good, where I consider her, but then not pick her. Now, I did also consider Michelle Costa, who is someone that I assumed would have been on their radars for a while, though considering it doesn't seem like she is at this point. She probably wouldn't make it on anyway, but again, I think she got into confrontations. Is probably more of a villainous figure than a hero, but again, either way, did not make it on.
Also, I did consider Libra, who wouldn't be mentioned here if it wasn't for the fact that she was supposedly in the running to be on The Amazing Race, so again, there may be some eyes on her, but again, I doubt Big Brother production in particular would end up putting her on the cast.
And also, Brian Hart is someone to mention here, as again, someone they obviously tried to bring back immediately afterwards. I think would probably quantify as a villain, yet again, did not feel like he made the cut.
But the person I did put on the cast ends up being for the Villains Tribe. I did put Jesse on. Now, with Jesse, the question is, again, will he say yes to playing again? And would his wrestling career interrupt with that? But really, at the end, just kind of screw it. I put him on. Again, he was just on House of Villains, where, again, it seemed like he was pretty apt to be doing more reality TV. And, again, I do think he's obviously a great heel for Big Brother. So, again, I decided to put him on the cast here, as, again, he's clearly someone that I think production would want back. And, again, there's a chance he might say yes.
Next for BB11, and no one for BB11 made the cut, but again, more people to consider. Again, on the heroes, you got Jordan. Again, I think Jordan's someone that they wouldn't be opposed to bringing back, though at the same time, I don't think she wants to come back, so again, did not pick her. Also, obviously, you got Big Jeff, who, again, I think they would consider him, though I don't think he would be brought back in the modern day. From the villain side of things, I do think you have a few contenders here. Again, Kevin Campbell is someone that I think they very much liked after 11, though obviously after 22, I don't think they're as high on him. Russell is someone that I personally would love to see back, though I don't think it's very likely, so again, I did not put him on. And also, Ronnie is someone that I think would be a very interesting villainous returnee. I just don't think they remember him at this point.
Now for BB12, where there are a lot of considerations here, but no one ultimately made the cut.
Now, on the hero side of things, again, I think you got a lot of the brigade members. You got Hayden, who I think is someone to mention here. Though, again, I don't think he would be brought back at this point. Lane is someone, again, I would personally like to see back, though I don't think they would pick him. Enzo is someone to consider.
Though I don't think he fits into the theme particularly well, and also I really don't need to see him again anyway.
Brittany is someone I really wanted to bring back, though. I just felt like there were, again, some reservations there in terms of her willingness to come back. For a while, she obviously came back for Reindeer Games. I don't feel like she was ever particularly likely to come back for a full-blown season. So again, in comparison to someone like a Danielle Reyes, who, again, we at least know was in serious talks to come back for 22. I don't believe Brittany ever was in real talks to come back for a full-blown season, where I don't think she particularly wants to where, again, I didn't end up putting her on because of that. On the villain side of things, I very much considered Matt Hoffman. I really tried to get Matt Hoffman on, and my thing with Matt Hoffman is that I just don't know if production cares about him anymore. Where I think if they did, they would have considered him for 22, and I don't believe he was in consideration for 22, to where, I think that was my main gripe there, to where, again, he did not make the cast.
Also, I did very much consider Rachel.
Where really, I think there's an argument for both. I think she could be a hero in the sense that she won a lot of competitions. She's someone that came out of BB13 being a fan favorite, one of the most renowned Big Brother players, yet I think she could also be a villain. Again, she got into a lot of fights. She was really hated
on both of her first two seasons, where the reason she isn't on this cast is obviously because she's on BB27, where, again, I don't get the sense that Rachel is particularly excited to be playing Big Brother again following this, to where, again, she was on my initial draft of this list, though, once again, she already came back for BB27. I do think the chances of her returning is fairly unlikely, so again, I end up taking her off this cast.
Next for BB13, and not many people from BB13 were really even in contention. Now for the hero side of things, again, someone like Dominic is someone to mention here. Where again, he's at least still on their radars through him being married to Danielle, but realistically, I don't think he's coming back. From BB14, people I considered, from the hero side of things, you got Ian, who, again, I think they still like. I don't believe Ian wants to come back, but again, at least someone to consider there. Also, you got Frank, who is someone that, to be fair, again, I think he teeters on the edge of hero or villain. I think they look at him as a hero, so again, I think he would be on the heroes, but even then, again, I don't think they would bring him back nowadays. Anyway, for BB15, obviously, again, no one's really coming back from BB15 at this point, but again, some considerations. McCrae is someone that I think probably comes out of that season looking the best, I guess, and I guess you could say, he's a hero, but again, did not put him on. Judd is someone also I think looked pretty favorably coming out of that season, and again, one of the fan favorites, I think definitely someone to consider, but did not put him on. Alyssa is someone that I think, again, you could also quantify as a hero here. Fan favorite of the season.
Though again, I do think she is far enough back and from a fairly unpopular season to where I do doubt they would bring her back nowadays. But again, she was in consideration. Also, I'll mention Howard, who was obviously a fan favorite at the time, especially with everything he had to go through in the house. And again, would be a very clear hero in this spot. But ultimately, I do think production would try to obviously bury this situation instead of bring it back up here. So again, he did not make the cast.
On the villain side of things, I did consider Andy just because, again, I think it'd be interesting to see Andy return. Yeah, I don't think they're that interested in it. And Amanda is someone to at least consider, considering she was such a big name at the time. Yeah, I think they would probably want nothing to do with her nowadays. But now for BB16, where still no one made the cut here, though obviously there are a lot more considerations. On the hero side of things, I think they would consider Derek as a hero. Though I think it's still a spot where, again, I don't think Derek has an interest in playing Big Brother again. I think if he did, he would have been back on 22. I think he's in the spot where I just don't think he would say yes. So obviously, if he did want to play again, he would be on. But again, I don't think he would want to. Cody is someone to mention. Again, I think Cody would also land as a hero. But I don't think he's dying to play again. I also don't think there's much reason for me to want to see him play again. Also, I considered Caleb because, again, I think they would want Caleb. Not because I want Caleb, but again, I think they would at least consider him probably as a hero because I think that's how they look at him, but again, did not pick him. Frankie is someone I considered, though. I didn't know if Frankie would be a hero or a villain, and really at the end of the day, I did not pick Frankie simply because I don't think Frankie wants to do a full season again. Now, again, if this was a shorter season, and maybe down the road I'll do like some sort of video like that, like a casting of a shorter season Big Brother, because I do think there are people that would say no to, like, again, a big season like this, but would say yes to, again, like a 1 month season instead. I think Frankie's probably one of those, but again, we never really got any indication that he was willing to play a bigger season, where we know he turned down 22, to where just in general, I don't think he's someone that's likely come back for a big season like this. Donnie is someone I will mention here, someone that I did put in my second chance cast. Yeah, I do feel like Donnie's time feels like it's passed a bit, though obviously he would be a perfect hero for this cast. Yeah, again, I just did not pick him. On the villain side of things, I did consider Nicole Franzel, where, I mean, Nicole's kind of one of these where I think I would classify her as a villain. I don't know if production does, but also I don't know if they classify her as a hero either. Either way, I don't know if Nicole's dying to play Big Brother again, so again, doesn't really matter. Also, I considered Zach, where obviously Zach would be a great villain for the cast. Yeah, at the same time, obviously he's ruined his relationship with production. And also, he doesn't want to come back anyway. So again, did not pick him. And I also considered Devin Shepard because it'll be fun. But again, I don't think they would want him at this point. But next up for BB17. And one person from BB17 made the cast. And again, you can kind of guess who it is. But people I considered for the hero side of things. I did consider Johnny Mac. I think Johnny Mac is someone that, again, was very likable at the time. Again, he was my favorite character of the season, but again, considering he was asked for 22, I doubt he's on their radars anymore. Then I did consider James, who was someone that obviously they loved at the time, brought back immediately afterwards. I think he's at least someone in the running, though did not pick him. Davon is someone to mention here, as again, someone that obviously came back couple times afterwards. I still think they very much like Davon, though I just don't think Davon be wanting to play a full-blown season once again, so I did not pick her. From the villain side of things, I did consider Austin, who I think would be a very interesting returnee. Yeah, I think his time's probably passed for a potential return. Jason is someone to mention, as someone that obviously got brought back for OTT, and I do think they like Jason, yeah, and don't think he'd make the cut nowadays. And also Audrey would be a very interesting returnee. I don't think they would pick her. The person I did pick from BB17 is obviously Vanessa. And Vanessa's a person that I just don't know where she stands with production. I don't know if she's not willing to play again or if things just didn't time out correctly for BB22, where obviously, again, she was pregnant at the time, so again, she was not going to be on that.
And I remember hearing rumblings that she was willing to play again more recently, but again, it is a bit unknown on her exact desire to play again, while also just unsure if production really cares about her anymore, where I can't even think of the last time they even referred to her. It's probably since BB18, so again, I'm a bit unsure on if this pick is something that would actually happen, but obviously, again, it would be a pretty inspired pick, and there's nothing definitive saying that they wouldn't bring her back nowadays, so again, I put her on the cast.
And again, in terms of hero or villain, I think villain is the perfect place for her. Again, poker player, also someone that played this very methodical, strategic game. I think kind of easy villainous role here, even though, again, is she actually like a villain in terms of overall personality? Not really, but I do think she fits villain more than hero in this spot.
Now for BB18, where, again, one person ended up making the cut here.
Though, again, some considerations. I mean, for the heroes, obviously I considered Victor. I did put him on my second chance cast. Yeah, I do feel like for a season like this, it's like, I feel like there's enough male heroes already, but I think Victor kind of struggles to even get on the cast nowadays. So again, I did not put him on. Also, I consider Natalie Negrotti, who was someone that I think they liked at the time, and again, I would have thought that she would be in the running for 22. Yeah, again, even then, I don't think she's dying to play Big Brother again, so I did not consider her. For the villains, I did consider Paulie Calafiore, because I think he's someone that I would expect would be willing to play again, though I don't know if they're willing to bring him back. So again, I did not put him on. And I did consider Jose, because again, he was in the running for OTT. I think Jose would be really funny to see return, yet I'm not expecting it.
But the person from BB18 I did end up putting on the cast ends up being Paul. Now, again, I don't know if Paul would say yes to a modern Big Brother season, where I do know they have really detached themselves from the show, and truthfully, I wasn't going to put them on the cast here until they end up showing on House of Villains, to where it shows that obviously they're willing to play reality TV again. And obviously they are kind of a perfect villain here for the Villains tribe. While again, there are some question marks of whether or not they would say yes, I did ultimately put them on the cast here.
Next for BB19.
Shockingly, I have two people from this cast on the cast. Technically three for including Paul, which is again kind of funny coming from BB19.
Now, people I considered for the heroes, we have someone like a Mark, who I thought would have been a dark horse returnee at the time, though I think time's passed to where he's probably not on. Also, I considered Cody, sadly, because I think they would at least consider him, though, again, I hope that they would not put him on, where, again, I didn't put him on. And for the villain side of things, I mean, Christmas is someone I would classify as a villain, but do we need a Christmas return? Alex is someone that I thought would have been a person that they would potentially brought back at the time, though considering she was in the running for 22, I kind of doubt it. And also, I did consider Raven, because I think it would be funny, though, again, I did not put her on.
But now for the people I did put on, first, obviously, I have Josh.
And again, Josh is obviously a villain. I think that's pretty easy. Again, him being very confrontational, though, while he is a much more affable presence now than what he used to be when he was on Big Brother last time. And I do think he had an overall pretty positive portrayal on Reindeer Games. I do think it's a spot where, and he fits villain more than he does hero. And I think him being on the cast would be pretty undeniable. I mean, he's obviously very willing to do reality TV again. He was almost on 22 until he had COVID. And again, I think he's someone that has never really shown himself being willing to turn down reality shows. Where again, I do expect Josh to be very much in the running.
And also here for the heroes, I did end up putting on Jessica. Now, I really debated on this one, as again, I personally don't need to see Jessica again, and it's been a while since her original season, and she's still just a pre-jury boot, but considering how Julie was really praised praising her fairly recently, in the fact that she'd be brought back in this spot alongside Josh and Paul, which could be an interesting dynamic. I did ultimately still land on her being on the cast here, again, as a hero, because, again, I feel like they would look at her as a hero. So while, again, there are other people that I would rather see back than Jessica personally, I do think if she were available and ever not pregnant, that they would be wanting to put her on. So, again, I put her on the cast. Now for BB20, where I did end up putting one player from this cast on the cast here.
Now, people I considered not put on from the hero side of things, I did consider Tyler, and Tyler's someone that was relatively close to being on here. I mean, Tyler's someone that obviously was loved after BB20. He was such a lock for 22, though 22 was obviously a very mixed situation there, to where I don't know if they're particularly high on him still, though, again, he was someone that was definitely on my board, but did not end up making the final cut. I did also consider Haley, just, again, as a general returnee, though I didn't really know if she really fit hero or villain. I guess hero more than villain, but still, again, someone that didn't quite make it on by the end. For the villain side, I did consider Angela, who, again, I think by the end came off as this like ice queen, where, again, I think there's at least a shot there, but again, considering she wasn't asked back for 22, and then obviously Challenge USA was not a great experience for her, again, I would assume she would probably say no. Also, I did consider Brett, and again, I think Brett is someone that, again, kind of perfectly played into this like heel role on the show, again, had these big confrontations and make these big speeches calling people out, would have this really fun energy in the DR, and again, I think the worry is that, again, he wasn't brought back for 22. Do they really care about Brett anymore?
Oh, he was close to making it on here, and for me, he was really fighting for the same spot as Jesse, but I did end up going with Jesse, where, again, they clearly just like Jesse more, and with his more recent return to reality TV, I do think it makes more sense for Jesse to be on this cast.
Also, I did consider Caitlyn. Now, again, is Caitlyn a villain? I'm not sure, but again, I wouldn't say she's a hero, so, again, I think she's someone that's at least a consideration, though I don't think they'll pick her. And same thing goes with Swaggy. Again, I think Swaggy is someone that, again, I don't know if you necessarily quantify him as a hero or a villain, but I do think he came off in a bit of a negative tinge outside of his relationship with Bailey, to where, again, I would lean villain, but realistically, neither of them, and at the end of the day, again, doesn't make the cast anyway.
But the person that did make it on, though,
for the hero side, we do have Casey. Now, Casey's a bit of a strange case, where I think for a while Casey was a big lock. I do feel like recently she's obviously been burnt out of reality TV, has been on The Challenge so many times that I don't know if she would necessarily say yes to Big Brother anymore.
Now, she obviously did make an appearance on BB27 as a mystery competitor, which gives me a bit more confidence she would be willing to come back to Big Brother. But with her retirement from The Challenge, it did leave me a little bit unsure.
Considering there's, again, at least proof that she was almost on 22, I feel like it was enough to put her onto this cast, even though, again, there definitely are some reservations there. Now moving on to BB21, where no one from BB21 made the cast, but again, a few considerations. For the hero side of things, I considered Nicole. Again, obviously they were about her back. I don't think it went particularly well, so I doubt they'll bring her back again, but again, at least someone in consideration. Cliff is someone I considered, though. Again, I think if they wanted him, they would have brought him back for 22, which they didn't. So again, didn't pick him. Tommy is someone that I think is still on their radars. Again, he's obviously been on The Challenge. And again, I think he's at least someone that they could potentially look at, though did not pick him. I'd also consider Kat, where, again, really Kat, does she fit as a hero or villain? Really neither. But again, someone that I think still around the BB streets, to where maybe should be in consideration. And for the villain side, I did consider Christy. But I think Christy would be a really funny returnee. Again, I just don't think made it on. But now we're moving on to BB23, where, again, from this point on, this is where the bulk of the returnees come from. I mean, BB23 alone has 4 returnees here, where I do think they really like the BB23 cast. So through that, again, we got a lot of people to talk about here. But the people that did not make it on for BB23, for the hero side of things, I not put on either of Azah or Hannah, where I think both of them could quantify as a hero. Again, obviously in line with the cookout, though Azah, just in general, I don't know if they loved Azah by the end. And Hannah is someone that, again, I don't know if would say yes to a long season like this. So again, neither of them made it on. Alyssa is someone that I think they liked by the end. Again, was kind of a scrappy underdog towards the end. So again, I at least considered her, but she didn't make it on. Claire is someone I considered, where Claire did make my second chance cast. Yeah, for a cast like this, I do feel, again, it's a bit too stacked of a field. So again, Claire did not make it on. On the villain side of things, really the only consideration that did not make it on ended up being Frenchie, where, and I think Frenchie's at least on their radars. Yeah, I think as time goes away, again, probably not remembered enough to be an actual returnee. But with that, again, we got 4 people that made the cast from this season. So let's start off with the hero side of things. So first up, we do have Xavier. Now, Xavier is a big question mark to me. I think Xavier's one of these people that, again, do I actually think he'll say yes to a 90-day season? Not really. However, I still decided to put him on here despite that, because, again, I think they want him, and he has said yes to other reality shows, and again, was obviously on Reindeer Games. So again, I wouldn't like completely rule him out, even though, again, I kind of doubt it for a 90-day season, but still, again, I think they would want him. Obviously the winner of the season that had to cook out. Pretty popular winner overall. Now, again, if he's not there, I think there's an easy replacement for him, which, again, we'll later talk about, but I do think for the sake of this list, I did decide to leave him on. Also on the hero side, I did also put on Tiffany. Now, again, Tiffany's one that you could debate hero or villain. I think overall she was looked at very positively, obviously one fan favorite. favorite. He ended up sacrificing her game for the cookout to where, again, I think, again, she'll qualify as a hero, even though I think you can look at her, again, gameplay style and her overall personality and maybe get villain. But again, I think as a whole, she's a hero here. And again, obviously a big lock. Again, I think next returning season, especially like a full-blown returning season, I think Tiffany's definitely there. I think she's very top of mind. She's someone that is very willing to play again. Where, again, I think Tiffany's an easy pick. And another hero we do have on the board here, we do have DX. And again, DX also, same thing. I think very likely returnee. Obviously, they brought him back for a host of reindeer games, where beyond that, again, like he's just obviously within the CBS world, where, again, I think DX is very top of mind for them. And again, I think fits within the hero side of things here. Won a lot of challenges, very likable presence. Again, easily a pick here. For the villain side of things, I did put one person on the villain side of things, and that person is Kyland. And again, Kyland, again, I think they would want back for numerous reasons. Again, obviously Cookout, along with that, was a pretty dynamic player. Again, had a pretty explosive exit with the Xavier thing, which, to be fair, I think might worry them a little bit. But I think the way he handles that is definitely something that you can quantify him as a villain. And just in general, obviously, I don't think you want all the Cookout members all in the Hero Tribe, especially if you're doing some sort of twist within the groups themselves. I think you'd want to split up that group to some degree. And I feel like having Kyle on the villains here just makes more sense. Next up for BB24, and only one person made it from BB24. Though that person's pretty obvious. Though, again, definitely some other considerations. I mean, let's talk about it now. Again, I considered Monty for the heroes, I guess. But again, I think Monty's probably the person you would put on here over Xavier if Xavier can't be on. I think Monty, again, is pretty much the same archetype. I think also clearly production liked Monty. So again, I think Monty would be the replacement. Though, again, I did not feel like he fit the cast with Xavier on it already. Also, we got Turner, and I think Turner's another one of these. I don't know if he's a hero or a villain. I mean, I don't think he's really either. But just another one that, again, not really enough slots on the cast. I think if he was on, he'd be on with a certain other person on the other side of things, but I didn't feel like either of them made the cut. I did also consider Michael, who, to be honest, I don't know if they quantify Michael as a hero or a villain. I think typically he'd be looked at as a hero with how many comps he won, yet if I were to guess, I would say they're not in love with how Michael played the game, where I think maybe they would lean towards villain, but either way, I mean, like, he's definitely in consideration here, though I just feel like there's some reservations on whether or not production would want him back, so again, I did not put him on. And also for the heroes, I did not put on Joseph, who's someone that I wouldn't mind to see back. A lot of the online community really likes Joseph. I don't know if production ever liked Joseph that much. I mean, he was an alternate to even get on the season. He had a pretty quiet edit. And even though he is going to be on The Amazing Race, I never really got the sense that he was a top priority for Big Brother production. And for the villains, I did consider Jasmine. Now, again, I think if Turner was on, Jasmine would also be on. I think that's like a duo they would like together. But again, I just did not feel like there's enough room for both of them. And Jasmine, I think as probably time goes on, will be less of a priority, though I do think she would be a pretty decent fit for the villains tribe. Also, I did consider Nicole, who I think is someone that they clearly liked at the time. Obviously, I think they were not happy with the negativity surrounding her, but considering the fact that she has gone on to apologize for her actions, I feel like they'll at least be willing to bring her back. I doubt she would actually make the cut. And also, I did consider Amira, and Amira was a bit closer to making it on. Amira was probably the closest BB24 person that didn't make it on to making it on, though I think it's a spot where, again, there's only 4 female villains, and I think there's just other priorities over Amira in this spot. So, again, person I did put on from BB24, unsurprisingly, is Taylor. Again, obvious, and obviously she's as a hero. I mean, again, I think there's not really much denying here. Now, I think there's a world where Taylor could come out of the season being a villain. Like, I think we saw some of that on Reindeer Games, where she had this more like cutthroat gameplay style, would play it up in the confessional, where, again, I think there's a world where she exits as a villain, but obviously, like, as we know her now, as her role on BB24, she's very obviously a hero. So again, easily makes it there. Next for BB25, and surprisingly only one BB25 person made it on. I thought there would be more considering how recent of a season it is. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are just kind of on the edge of the cast, but then just did not make it on by the end. Though people I considered but did not make it on. For the heroes, I did consider Matt. I mean, Matt is someone that obviously was, again, almost fan favorite, but realistically, I don't know if they loved Matt in terms of what he brought to the show. He obviously did not get that much screen time, and obviously along with that, we got the controversy over them not commenting challenges for him. Again, I personally don't think they'll want to deal with that again. Now, I'll also mention Cameron, which, again, I think they would cast him as a hero, even though he's not. But again, I think in reality, I don't really expect them to bring back Cameron at this point. I think we got what we wanted to get from him from Reindeer Games, to where I just think there's other people that are bigger priorities than Cameron at this point, specifically a person from 26 that we put on the cast, to where, again, I just don't think Cameron is top of mind for them at this current point, to where, again, I would not put him on. Now, for the villain side, and to fair, this one's very questionable, but I did consider Felicia. Felicia did not make it on. I wanted to put Felicia on. She just didn't really fit by the end, but again, I do think she would quantify as a villain. I don't really feel like Felicia ever came off as heroic And I think she is more renowned for, again, getting into confrontations, having some funny one-liners. Again, I feel like she has more of a villainous personality. Again, I would have quantified her as a villain, and obviously there's just another more recent villain that's more top of mind right now. It's where Felicia did not make it on. I also considered Corey, yet Corey's kind of in this spot where I don't know if production is like in love with Corey. I don't think they dislike him, but I do feel like there's probably just other people in his archetype that are a bit more likely to come back. And while again Corey I think would be in the running, I did not put him on. I also didn't put on Jared, who again I think is someone that definitely could be in contention. Yeah, I just think the slots for male villains is a bit tight, and with Jared being a relatively early boot, I did not put him on. Also, I considered Izzy because I would love to see Izzy back, and I think she would perfectly fit into the villainous role. Yeah,
kind of like Joseph, where while she is going to be on The Amazing Race, I don't think Big Brother Productions seem to care that much about her. So again, she didn't make the cut here.
And also a person that again was so close to making it on, I did consider Hisam. Hisam is still again someone that I think they like, and I think they'd be willing to bring back, especially like close to his season. But I do think as time goes on, that's always going to fade away. And again, I think with the high prestige that this cast is, where there's so many winners, there's so many people that just made it deep into the game, I do think having Hisam there does feel a bit strange to have the third boot of BB25. So again, did not put Hisam on. But the person I did put on from BB25 ends up being the winner of the season. We got Jag. And again, I think clearly Jag wants to play again. I think they would be willing to have him back. I think it's very clear that he would be here. And I did end up putting him on the hero side of things. I don't really feel like there's much justification for putting him on the villains. I mean, he is someone that won a lot of challenges, which is typically looked at as heroic. He also remained loyal to his number one ally. I do feel like at the end of the day, he is someone that I would quantify as a hero here. And finally, we move on to BB26, the final cast to run through. And here, again,
I put 3 people from this cast on the cast.
Again, I do think BB26 was a season that I clearly liked by the end. I think it's clearly a season that would have top priority on a upcoming returnee season. So again, people that I consider but did not make it on. On the hero side of things, I did consider Mackenzie. Now, Mackenzie's someone that did make my second chance cast, and I did very much consider her for this one. And I do think not having Mackenzie here does leave this cast in a bit of a weird spot where there's not many like younger women, which you would typically see, but I guess for how many of them do you really see on returnee seasons anyway? So again, MJ was relatively close to making it on because of that, but by the end, I did not fit her on.
Now, I'm mentioning Rubina simply because, again, she was on The Amazing Race, but again, I do think she fits into that show way more than she does for Big Brother, where she even admitted that herself. And again, I doubt, and I also hope that we don't see her again on Big Brother.
I also considered Chemo, who was someone that I do think they liked by the end. Now, again, they did also call him boring, so you never really know, but I do think Chemo is someone that, again, like if a returning season happened immediately, I think there's at least a shot he's in consideration, though I doubt he would make it on. I did also consider Cedric, where I think they clearly like Cedric. He got a pretty big edit in the show. He got a pretty tragic downfall, to where again, maybe he'd be in consideration if I didn't put him on. And for the villains, the people that I consider but did not make it on.
First, we do have Quinn, who again, isn't really a villain, though I was considering him for this group purely because he's in direct opposition to a certain hero on the cast, but ultimately he didn't make the cut, though he was pretty close to, or he was one of the last people I cut, particularly in favor of Paul here, though again, I can't see worlds where they bring him back, though I do feel like he is less of a priority as other BB26 players, and sadly I did have to cut him by the end. Now, the only other person I considered was
Brooklyn, where I feel like they liked what Brooklyn brought in her final week of the show, especially like her feud with Angela, though at the end of the day, again, I found it very difficult to fit her on. But the people that did make it onto the cast here, the only hero I put on the cast here ends up being Tucker. Now, Tucker is someone that I would debate if he's a hero or a villain. I think he's like so loud in your face that I think you can quantify him as a villain, though he also is, again, someone that challenges and tried to play a more loyal game, even though, again, he was doing these very wacky, crazy moves. So again, I debated over the two. I did land on heroes simply because, again, the other BB26 people are all on the villain side of things, to where I think mixing in the fact that, again, he was fan favorite, I think that was really the thing that put him over the edge, to where, again, he's on the hero side. On the villain side of things, though, first up, we do have the winner of the season. We do have Chelsea. And again, I think Chelsea's probably a likely returnee for an upcoming season. I think she is someone that production clearly liked, especially by the end. Got a pretty sizable edit by the end, but also I think is like pretty clearly a villain from my point of view. I think she clearly played this manipulative, domineering style of game. Again, the way that she handles MJ in the game, I do think is something that, again, is of a villain, to where, seeing the fact that we got some pretty harsh confessionals from her as well. Again, I think she's a villain. Along with that, I also put on Angela. Again, Angela, I think is someone that, again, is top of mind right now. Again, pretty much the biggest character from BB26. Where, again, I think she kind of took Felicia's spot in that. Even though I do question the exact interest level from production on Angela. I think there might be some worry about like her not being as controllable as certain other people, but I think as of right now, I would say Angela's pretty likely. And again, I think she's clearly a villain. I think, again, her calling out Matt and calling him crazy eyes was clearly shown as a villainous moment. And just in general, while she did come off as endearing by the end, I think as a whole, she would be listed as a villain. With, again, that is the entire cast of my Big Brother Heroes Villains. I'll run through the cast.
For the hero side of things, shockingly, the earliest player on the board here from BB19, I have Jessica Graf. From BB20, I have Casey Clark. From BB23, I do have Xavier, Tiffany, and DX. From BB24, I have Taylor Hale. From BB25, I have Jag Baines. And from BB26, I do have Tucker. Now for the villains grouping, which is again a little bit more old school, we got from BB3, Danielle Reyes. From BB10, Jesse Goddard. From BB17, Vanessa Russo. From BB18, we have Paul. From BB19, we have Josh. From BB23, we have Kylan. And from BB26, we do have Chelsea and Angela.
So again, that's the cast of Big Brother Heroes versus Villains. So again, 5 years ago, this was literally the last casting video I did for a very long time. I don't plan on that remaining the case. I mean, even though I do think Big Brother returning seasons are not going to happen that often, I do think it's kind of like a pointless exercise to really go through a lot of the themes I've done for Survivor, especially when trying to look at it from a more practical lens. I still think it can be a fun thought experiment to go through some of these other casting videos, which again, I think I'm a bit more open to doing more of these down the road, even though again, for those, I might try to keep out the realistic nature of them, considering how unrealistic those themes are, where even for something like Heroes vs. Villains here, I don't think Big Brother will ever do a Heroes vs. Villains season. I think this is, again, a season that will definitely never happen, but again, I still think it's still fun to talk through. So, again, down the road, maybe expect some more Big Brother casting videos, just in general, expect more, obviously, Survivor, Big Brother videos, and just the general content you would typically expect from the channel. But for now, that is the video. Thank you for watching.